What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Early Wedge. It's our debut of the live betting show, and no better people to do it with than Patrick McDonald, Jason Sobel, Mike McClure. We've got a lot of huge scores out on the course right now, gentlemen, at the Cognizant Classic. Eric Van Rooyen tied for the lead. He's 8 under, which is crazy. Mike, your boy Luke Clanton is having a nice day, and he's threatening the leaderboard. Let's start right there, Mike. Any thoughts on Luke Clanton? Like, clearly, like the crowd, I'm watching the early coverage. Everybody's behind Luke Clanton. He's playing really well. Do you think he can actually threaten winning this thing?
I don't think he's going to threaten winning it. Just it's the scoring conditions are far too easy out there. I mean, it would take an extremely good back nine for this to happen. I think the more important thing, though, is he did bogey that second hole, responded very nicely with the eagle on that par 5. And really, that round could have went either way after that bogey. So I like what I've seen from him. And I like the foot down on the pedal, despite where he was coming into this round, knowing that he'd secured that PGA Tour card. It was one of those situations where an early bogey could have turned into a really subpar round for Luke Clanton, who, again, the main goal was to get that PGA Tour card. So I like what I've seen. Definitely not, in my opinion, not going to threat to win this because the scoring's so easy, but probably looking at a solid top 10 to 15 finish in this one.
Jason, yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Follow up.
Yeah, sorry. I agree completely with Mike. I don't think he's in a threat to win this thing just because the scores are pretty low. But that said, this is what I expected from Luke Clanton yesterday. We saw the big celebration on Friday afternoon. I was actually a little surprised by the celebration because there wasn't too much drama to it. He was safely inside the cut line. He birdied the last hole. And look, more power to him. He gets that last point through the PGA Tour U accelerated program and clinches his PGA Tour card. But I figured on Saturday and moving day, where he's not making any money this week, and so he might as well just fire at flag sticks, be aggressive, play some great golf. Wasn't quite there yesterday for Luke Clanton, but this is what I expected from him, being able to freewheel it, play with house money, so to speak, and that's what he's doing right now. So yeah, I do like the top 10 right now, but I don't think he's going to challenge for this title.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know Mike McClure is making money on Luke Clanton and probably Minwoo Lee, as he has some top 40 positions there. And we talked about a lot of these guys on the early wedge. Patrick, talk to me about, I mean, here's the thing. Jason, and you know this too, you're on the betting show as well, whereas, Mike's on the DFS show, but it felt like we all had a position on Daniel Berger. A lot of us had a position on Sepp Straka. I see a guy like, Max Grazerman's going off, and that's not too big of a surprise, right? Eric Van Rooyen's going off -8. There's like even Zach Johnson. There's a lot of different sort of profiles here of guys that are going off on a Sunday. It tells me, Patrick, that I don't know how far back is too far back, but certainly guys that we were on the early wedge, like Sepp Straka and Daniel Berger, if they can get hot, they can chase down this leader, right?
I'm looking at the 12 unders probably where a bunch of those guys are at, right? Sepp Straka's there, Daniel Berger's there. I know Daniel Berger's not feeling 100% health-wise. Might have caught one of those bugs that's going around every week, it seems like. And so you talk about those profiles, they're all honestly pretty similar, right? They hit a ton of fairways and they're fantastic iron players. And it just seems like which guy is going to make the high leverage putts down the stretch is going to come out and win this. So it's very difficult to kind of pick a name from that group. I think there's a couple prospects who could make that run up the leaderboard, like a Daniel Berger, but there's so many names from that 12 to 16 under range where you're probably going to have to shoot something around 7 under and hope that Knapp, Michael Kim, and the rest of the guys towards the top of the leaderboard don't go too crazy. So it's setting up for a really exciting day, especially with that finishing stretch.
Yeah, and then forgive me, as I'm looking away from the screen, I'm looking at matchups that we still have left, which we're going to address in a second. I'm looking at the outright odds. I'm looking at the coverage on Golf Channel, ESPN Plus. Like, I've got this whole fantastic setup, but it does, Patrick, you do lead into, I think, the first question from a betting standpoint that people want to know. And Mike, you and I were on HQ earlier. How far is too far back? But more importantly, Mike, I'm going to start with you. When we look at the BetMGM odds, we got Jake Knapp at +300, Michael Kim +450, Russell Henley +550, goes down to Ben Griffin, Doug Gim, Luke Clanton has crawled up there at +1200, Ricky Fowler, who I like, +1600. Give me a couple of names where you think there's value in actually taking a number right now.
For me, it's Ben Griffin and Doug Gim, but Ben Griffin's a guy that I really like here. Look, he has 2 bogeys this week. both on the same hole. It's a difficult hole. It's the par 4/6. And if he can figure that out, he's really close to stringing together a very, very good round. And he's just within striking distance. We've seen the course play relatively easy once again today. I think that he can continue to build. He wasn't super good in round 1, but round 2 and 3, really pretty strong in terms of tee to green play, not doing a lot with the putter, which I like. There's still opportunity to, have some good luck and variance on the putting greens themselves. So for me, it is Ben Griffin. Doug Kim, I think he gained 7 strokes tee to green in round 2. Absolutely incredible there. But for me, Ben Griffin is the guy that really stands out as someone that could definitely go win this. That's plus 750 or longer.
Berger birdie on 1, says Hef Sterling, as I'm catching up with the coverage here. And I noticed that the odds have responded to that, right? Because he was sitting right with Sepp Straka at around 25, 28 to 1, depending on where you look. He's now plus 1,600, and Sepp Straka, because he hasn't finished the first hole yet, or maybe he hasn't even started it, he's plus 2,800. Jason Sobel, of some of the names that are in that tied for like T8 or T15 or, 2, 3, 4 shots back, anybody that comes to mind in terms of, hey, maybe there's some value here betting?
Yeah, so first of all, Sia, what we've seen early, Eric Van Rooyen going low, Luke Clanton going low, Max Gracerman going low. What we're seeing is a volatile golf course. There's a lot of volatile golfers at the top of this leaderboard. And so I don't mind going a little bit deeper than I might go, especially with a packed leaderboard. 4 shots back with a bunch of players in front usually is probably at least a yellow light, if not a red light. But I have no problem going back to, I saw Daniel Berger, like you said, at 28 to 1 just 10 minutes ago before he made that birdie on the first hole. He was going out at 22 to 1 on Wednesday evening, Thursday morning before the opening round teed off. And so I love the fact that he was just 4 shots back and a bigger number than when he started. So Daniel Berger, I'm pretty much pot committed at this point, but I agree with Mike. I think Ben Griffin is the guy that I'm looking out for. Again, Jake Knapp sort of been there, done that, around in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. I don't think we're getting one in the 40s or 80s today. That said, I still don't see Jake Knapp keeping the momentum going. And it comes down to me for who do I trust? I don't necessarily trust Jake Knapp. I don't really trust Michael Kim, even though he's been really good to start the year over the first couple of months. Luke Clanton's too far back. Russell Henley, are we going to trust Russell Henley, a guy who the performance outweighs the results on a very regular basis? Doug Kim, I certainly don't trust whatsoever. And so you start looking at it and it's like, I kind of trust Griffin and I kind of trust Berger. And those are the guys that I'm looking at right now.
Patrick, I want to get your thoughts here because I think the argument could be made that, and I don't know how tenuous this argument is, Jake Knapp is probably we were on a text message on Friday too, where I was like, Jake Knapp's not winning this tournament after his 59. And I didn't think I was making a bold statement. I really didn't, but he's still in the lead. So I'm kind of wrong. But when I look at the guys in the trail pack, I mean, Michael Kim, I like him. I don't like Russell Henley to close. I agree with Sobel there. Ben Griffin makes a lot of sense. There are so many names, Ricky Fowler, Daniel Berger, Sepp Straka, what name comes to mind? And do you think is Jake Knapp a guy that you're worried about actually closing? I know we just saw him close, but are you worried about him closing again?
So what's the difference between Ben Griffin's closing ability and Russell Henley's closing ability?
Well, I mean, Russell Henley's had more wins. Of a track. Say it again.
He has wins on the PGA Tour.
Well, yeah, but he's been on the PGA Tour a lot longer too.
Yeah, and he's been in high pressure situations like major championship contention. This past year, he's been at the President's Cup making clutch putts alongside the world number 1 Scotty Scheffler. And so I just think the whole quote unquote trust thing, I'm not really buying that angle at all. But that being said, I think the most consistent player, the guy who might have one of the higher floors near the top of the leaderboard is probably Michael Kim. Honestly, he's been so good to start 2024. M Square talked about bogey avoidance. Kim only has 1 so far this week that came late yesterday, and he's been taking care of the par 5s pretty easily. He's birdied 8 out of 9 of them so far. So if you're able to take care of those 3 par 5s throughout the course of your round and pick off a birdie here or there also, which is more than doable, we're seeing so far in the scoring conditions out there, that sets a really nice floor for you. And Michael Kim, that could get you to 19-ish under, 20-ish under. And from there, that puts a lot of pressure on everyone else. So I think Kim at 5-1's a pretty solid play, just with how well-rounded he's been and how steady he's been so far.
Yeah, he's plus 450 at present. And I was looking at, I mentioned this on HQ with Mike earlier. Ricky Fowler is now plus 1600. I just like the ball striking. I mean, again, it's a small sample size. I'm really just addressing this tournament, but the ball striking has been really consistent, really solid for Ricky Fowler. So I think at that number, because I'm getting double digits, I think Ricky is a guy that can absolutely get hot in this one. Let's take a look, and we'll circle back to live outrights in a little bit. And if you have questions in the chat, let us know. But we've got a couple of matchups that are still like not started yet, right, guys? Let's talk about Sepp Straka, Max McGreevy. They're going basically right now. But starting in about 8 minutes, we've got Taylor Montgomery and Joe Highsmith. Then after that, Doug Gim, Ricky Fowler, Russell Henley, Ben Griffin, Jake Knapp, Michael Kim. I don't know, Mike, if you've looked at any of those 4 matchups, looked at the numbers, I can tell you what they are. Any of those matchups kind of like, does any of it resonate in terms of, hey, I would actually take this matchup? I don't want you to force it, but what do you like, if anything?
Yeah, so it depends on where you're shopping, but I actually did fire a little bit on Griffin over Ricky Fowler, and it's really just coming down to the full body of work, what we've seen this season. So what I see from Ricky, he's just in that position where he's clearly going to be aggressive. There's no difference to him really if he finishes second or third or 12th, right? He's trying to win this, or that's basically it, right? So I think he might be a little too aggressive here. And again, I've not been inspired by what I've seen from him so far this season, despite having, 3 good rounds so far here. So at minus 110, that was what I played. It looks like some of the books have pivoted. I don't love betting Griffin over Russell Henley. I think there's essentially no edge in doing that. And I do like Doug Gim from what I've seen from him. Other than that, I don't have a ton of interest in those head-to-heads.
All right, Jason, any thoughts on any of those head-to-heads?
Yeah, we're sort of limited right now. Look, we only have a few groups left going out on the golf course, so it's not like we have a lot to choose from. But I'm okay with fading Gim. If you can find Fowler at a decent number against Doug Gim, Ricky said after his round, I believe the exact quote was, "I'd like to hit it where I'm looking." So the ball striking numbers actually look pretty good, and Ricky was still a little bit disappointed and still worked on some things after the round. I take that as a good sign. I think a lot of people take that as a negative sign that he's not hitting it where he wants to. I'm like, well, he's in contention and still not completely happy. There's room for improvement. I think that's a good sign for Ricky. So I don't mind Doug Gim, who's had, like Mike said earlier, just what was it, +7 strokes gained tee to green yesterday. Like at some point, I get it. Those ball striking numbers are sustainable from one round to the next to an extent, but that's not going to continue. He's not going to do the same thing day after day. So I don't mind fading Gim in this market.
All right, let's get to a question from Jeff Stenberg. I do want to mention, if you're not watching live, well, you're watching us live, of course, but if you're not watching the coverage live, looks like Van Rooyen's making a mess of the 17th. Looks like he's definitely going to have, I think he's chipping for bogey. I'm trying to pay attention to the show and pay attention to that at the same time, but he's going to probably fall a shot or two is my guess here. Jeff Stenberg says, my matchup is Fowler minus 125 versus Gim plus 125. I actually think that's Gim plus 100, Jeff. That's what I'm looking at. So either way, so Fowler minus 105. Okay, Gim plus 125. Either way, at BetMGM, it's Fowler minus 125 and Gim plus 100. Patrick, let's go to you. Do you like that? I mean, it sounds like we've got Jason on Fowler there.
I'm good staying away from that one, honestly. The one you mentioned earlier, Highsmith against Montgomery. I'm guessing that's probably like minus 140.
Good guess. Minus 145.
Yeah, I know it's heavy. I'd lay the juice on that one. Montgomery's playing on that medical extension. He's been pretty dreadful dealing with the shoulder injuries coming back. It's great to see him come back, obviously, and try to retain a PGA Tour card. But I liked Highsmith coming into the week. The ball striking numbers have been good enough, and I think he has a chance to move up the leaderboard. So I'd go with that one. But the Fowler Gim stuff, I'm not really interested in.
Yeah, as I scan this, if the Michael Kim number against Jake Knapp was a little closer to minus 110 each way, I would be on Michael Kim. It's minus 140 though. I think you can shop that and get minus 135. Yeah, Joe Neuenfeld says Kim minus 135 over Knapp. I still think that's super expensive, but I do lean that way. Mike, do you think that's too expensive? Michael Kim minus 135 over Jake Knapp?
I do. Outside of something like Patrick wanting to attack, someone playing on the medical exemption, I can get into leaning into numbers like that, but minus 135 in a final round like that you need to understand what that implies. And that's 57.5%. And to think that someone is, 7.5% better there, I think it's probably not something that's going to be profitable for you betting into that long term. Considering what we've seen on the course and how scoreable it is, I think you'd be better attacking, essentially playing every plus 125 in those matchups, and just playing those at volume is probably going to be a better result in these conditions.
Jason, go ahead.
To me, see, that to me feels like betting Hawaii at midnight on a Saturday night after you've lost all your college football games. You're trying to chase at the end of the day. It's like, I don't know. We got no other matchups left. What's going on? Oh, Kim's playing Nap. Oh, okay. I missed all the other ones. So I guess I'll fire on that one. But no, I don't. Like, if we had looked at the beginning of the day to the 30-something matchups that were on the board, that certainly would have been one for me.
I want to ask about Doug Gim real quick because Prasant is in the chat. He says, I love Gim today. Now, we know from a ball striking standpoint, particularly from approach, Doug Gim has been amazing, Patrick. But with that said, if we got guys going, 7, 8 under, 6 under, 5 under, you got to make putts. And I just don't know that I trust Doug Gim to do that. Like if the ball striking stays hot, that's great, but I still don't know if he can make the putt. So what are your thoughts on a Doug Gim outright? It's currently at plus 1,100.
1,100 is not horrible, but I mean, it's tough to trust a guy who, one, hasn't gotten it done, and two, hasn't gained strokes putting this week. I believe he hasn't gained strokes putting in like 20 out of his last 22 or something. I think if you're looking for positives, I would say going back to the Shriners when he was in the mix late, he acquitted himself nicely in that situation with JT Poston winning that tournament. But with such a bunched leaderboard, you're going to have to make high leverage, like 8 to 10 footers, whether it's to make birdie or save par. And out of all the guys on the leaderboard, I don't know if I have enough trust in Gim. I think the good news is he's going to give himself plenty of opportunities with how good his ball striking has been. But I still don't think he's going to make enough to win.
All right, let's talk about a guy that's going to be, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I see it in the chat. I had to check it. Doug Gim under 70.5 minus 110. That'd by far be my preferred way of attacking if you like your pro Doug Gim, just looking at these conditions. Now, I know this market is an interesting one because the hold can get a little out of control on these markets sometimes. But at this price point, it looks pretty fair. It's pretty close to a typical head-to-head matchup on the hold. So if you're betting Doug Gim and you're bullish on Doug Gim, under 70.5 minus 110 is probably by far your best way to look.
All right, let's talk about a pick to post a score early in the clubhouse, if you will. We got Eric Van Rooyen, who actually did drop a shot. Luke Clanton is only through 10 holes, and he's 5 under. Mike, let me just go back to you because I know you were the Luke Clanton guy. In terms of a guy that can post early, and maybe the wind gusts get up, maybe not. Either way, would Luke Clanton be that guy to maybe get to, and I'm ballparking it here, potentially 18, 19 under if he has a great back nine and post a score that guys like Jake Knapp will be nervous about hitting?
Yeah, right now it does look like Clanton is probably the most likely, other than, Berger and Spawn are two guys that are definitely going to have this. I see someone in the chat. Ben Griffin, to me, is still someone, I know it's not really posting the score. He's playing right in front of him, but Clanton's the guy here. Van Rooyen, back-to-back bogeys. That's kind of dead at this point. I think if you can get to 19, it is an interesting look, but I ultimately do think 19 or 20 is probably going to be the number here. Yeah,
Patrick, Jason, go ahead.
I mean, if you want to take a wild shot right now, and I agree with everything Mike's saying there, I don't know that it's really live, but Victor Perez at 12 under, he's 1 under through 3 holes so far. I mean, that's kind of what I'd like to look at this point, a guy with a decent number next to his name. It's like, okay, well, he's got a shot. Again, this is like Jeff mentioned in the comments. He said, Sobel doesn't understand, my illness, that I have to bet on everything. Okay, you have to bet on everything. Look, dude, you're talking to a guy who's got an Orlando and Charlotte MLS parlay with Berger to win because I'm going all in. Like, I was all in on Berger, then got more chips and pushed them all in as well. And instead of hedging, I'm basically like just throwing it all into the pile. So yes, I do understand your illness. And if you have to pick up something live right now and you're like, I'm looking at some of the guys who started early and who can get hot at some point, Victor Perez, but again, I'm just kind of like throwing one out there. I don't necessarily see an edge there. It's just a guy early in his round who's only 4 shots back.
So one thing you all need to know about Jeff Stenberg that don't already know, he is the king of sarcasm. And Jason, he got you and Rick to bite on the Friday show, the recap show and the Lookahead show, on talking about Michael Thorbjornsen, who for some reason is his favorite player. And I think he asked you guys about a T20 ticket. Now, granted, that was kind of in play until I think yesterday, or maybe it was earlier this morning. But Jeff is, for whatever reason, a big Thorb fan. So just well, there he goes. RIP to my Thor top 20 ticket. I blame C&M squared for their negativity. This will not be forgotten. Jeff is the best. Patrick McDonald, you wanted to say something. I know pre-show, you and I actually were talking about Brian Harmon. Now he's even through 5. So I kind of liked him for a top 10 at plus 260 before his round started. That's not looking great, just given that he's even through 5. But any thoughts on Brian Harmon today?
No, yeah, I put him in the rundown, and then he immediately 3-putted from 40 feet on 2, and then decided to 3-putt again there on the par 5 third. So has been the story of the week. Tee to green, he's been awesome, but maybe a name just to keep in the back of your mind with the players around the corner, given his success there, seeing some form from tee to green. Just stash him away, but looking like he's not going to do much today for us, unfortunately.
Yeah, I thought he was a sneaky play heading into this tournament, particularly in DFS at 7,700. And it's not like he's having a bad tournament. And I guess he's playing next week at the API, right, Patrick? I'm pretty sure he's in the field. So that's something we're going to talk about in a second. By the way, just so everybody knows, we've got this live component. We want to take your questions and your comments. We're going to, in a few minutes, we're actually going to talk about the API. And then once we're done with that, we're going to just kind of reset, see where the live outright market is and some of that, and just give you some final thoughts before we go. But let's just capitalize on this moment right here. So we're almost everybody's on the course. If we could pick one guy to close this tournament out. Now, Mike, I know it's Ben Griffin for you.
Yeah.
Patrick, is it Michael Kim for you?
Yeah, I'll roll with Michael Kim. Why not?
Okay. And Jason, who is it?
Very, very confident.
It's Daniel Berger, just because I've been saying it since Monday morning at 7 a.m. So I might as well stay with it at 1:23 p.m. on Sunday.
I love that. I'm doing the see, you're sticking to your guns. I'm the guy. Remember me on the Monday or the Tuesday show, Jason? You were like, you gave a long shot at 55 to 1. Like that's not a real long shot. So I'm going to be the guy that kind of toes the line here, because Jason, I'm on Berger as well. So is most of our show on the early wedge. I'm on Straka as well. So I'm hoping they make a charge. But taking those two out, Ricky Fowler would be the guy that currently at plus 1,600, where I would at least lay a few bucks on. Let's see. I'm looking at the chat questions to see if there's anything that we didn't hit. We hit Doug Gim. We hit what would you put on Griffin? Is this Doug Gim day? A lot of Doug Gim chatter. Go ahead, Jason.
And see, I'll just remind you what I said on Tuesday during that show, but this is the old ESPN thing. I, in a former life, was Chris Berman's producer for a while, and I love Boomer. He's one of my favorite people in the world. But anytime you get the expert panel and they all pick the same team, I use the Bills-Ravens example, and everybody picks the Bills on the panel. And he goes, yeah, they're all on the Bills. And of course, inevitably, the Ravens will win the game, and the Ravens social media team will send out the screenshot of everyone picking against them. The guys in the locker room will talk about everyone picked against us. We all picked Daniel Berger. The entire world was on Daniel Berger this week. Yeah. The fact that we're sticking with Daniel Berger just means the entire ship, the Titanic, is going down sinking, and we're all on it. I get it. I understand this.
This would be the biggest community win, in just golf sports betting history, would probably be a Daniel Berger, which assures us, to your point, Jason, that it's definitely not happening. But Daniel, prove us wrong, man. Prove us wrong. He's been very lackluster the last day and a half or so, but hopefully he can turn it around today. All right, here's what we're going to do. We are going to reset, and we're going to talk about the API for 10 minutes, and then we'll come back and take a look at the live leaderboard and see what's going on, and maybe give you a couple of more things to consider as you watch this final round. We're going to do all of that after this message from our partners.
Gives it to Jenkins for the championship. A 16 beats a 1. From sweet to elite to the Final Four.
We're back on the Early Edge, brought to you by BetMGM. This is the live betting show, but it's also the preview of the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Obviously, we're going to preview this a lot more during the Monday show, which, of course, is the DFS show, during the betting show, which is on Tuesday at 7 o'clock as well. But let's talk about the API right now. And tournament history-wise, I'm not going to get into the details here, but it does feel like it's total driving is really important here. Ball striking is really important. Tee to green, really important. A lot of the boxes that we typically are going to want to check here. Scotty Scheffler's won 2 out of the last 3. And I'll tell you guys, I am not going to be afraid to bet the without Scotty Scheffler market. I understand that sometimes people criticize that, but I just feel like this might be the tournament to dive into that particular market. With all that said, Patrick, I'm going to start with you. When you're looking for a golfer at Bay Hill, what are you looking for?
Just a tee to green merchant, pretty much, right? I mean, you look at the winners here: Scheffler, Kitayama, who's really good from tee to green. Scheffler again, DeChambeau, Hatton, and so you have maybe quicker greens there at Bay Hill. We always mention how shiny they are, and if you look at the broadcast next week, I'm sure you'll be seeing some guys their putters are going to slip on the green because they're that slick when they're picking their ball up out of the hole. So Scheffler has these greens down, and we've seen Scheffler throughout his career. He has his courses where he's won multiple times: Scottsdale, Bay Hill, Hero World Challenge, Masters, obviously, Sawgrass too. And so it's going to be tough to pick against him, but there's a lot of tee to green guys out there who are playing some pretty good golf and could apply to some pressure too.
Jason, your thoughts on Bay Hill?
Yeah, I agree with Patrick. It's tee to green, but it's also playing in the conditions. It's guys who embrace, like, hey, par's a good score. It feels a little bit like a U.S. Open. The breezes are going to blow. I live about 10 minutes from Bay Hill. I play there about once a month, and I understand the rough's growing up a little bit. The greens are going to be what we usually expect them to be, which is very, very slick, especially when the wind starts blowing. Early forecast shows that it's not going to be windy throughout the entire day, but gusting winds gusting into the 20 to 25 mile per hour range just about every day. And so I'm looking for guys who will embrace those conditions, guys who have played well at tough golf courses in the past. I'll be out there throughout the entire week. I can't wait for it. One of my favorite weeks of the year. And I've got one guy in mind. Once we start naming names, I've got a guy in mind, and I'm gonna regret it as soon as the word comes out of my mouth. I'm telling you.
Oh, no. I've got an idea of who that might be. Jason, so you're going to be boots on the ground there.
Oh, yeah. I'll be there doing shows for PGA Tour Radio and for us on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then throughout the entire weekend as well.
That's huge. Again, I don't think I said it at the forefront of this show, but we've said it at every show. Make sure you're subscribed to this SportsLine channel. Some of you might be listening to this podcast or watching it on the Golf on CBS channel. This show is being simulcast there for probably another 2-3 weeks or so, but you definitely want to be a part of the SportsLine channel where you can find the early edge shows, but also the early wedge shows. Jason, that intel is obviously going to be very important. Mike, you came into this Florida swing saying, I want to look at Florida guys. And I think that's a common theme. And I think it's the right thing to look at. Is that what you're also looking at for Bay Hill, whether it be Florida history or Bay Hill history?
Yeah, definitely another spot where I will lean into it a little bit more than say the average tour event. As the guys have mentioned, definitely tee to green going to be important. Just looking at some of the proximity buckets, just anything over 200 yards, I really care about here. I don't know if we're ready to start naming guys. I definitely have a few that I really, really like a lot early. But yeah, I think these guys kind of handled it. It's a lot of tee to green, a lot of just elite golfers in the field. But and again, that 200 plus bucket is going to be big for me.
Patrick, I can't remember all the shows we've done if you're like a big course history. I know everybody factors it in to some degree, but when it comes to Bay Hill, is that something you're going to be looking at?
Yeah, I think you got it. Like Mike said, I mean, some guys just play Florida golf much better than any other golf out there. And especially someplace like Bay Hill, like Jason said, with the conditions tough, it'll get to some guys early. And then at that point, you start spiraling downhill and it's kind of over.
Fair enough. Okay. Let's go to some names. I mean, we can't bury the lead here. Jason, who's the name that you're going to regret as soon as you utter his name?
I don't like betting on things that have never happened before. If you told me, hey, we're going to wake up tomorrow and the sky's going to be green instead of blue, I'd say, well, I need a pretty good number on that. Or like water's going to be dry. It's not going to be wet. 30 to 1 is probably not going to be enough to get me interested in that and betting that. And yet Tommy Fleetwood has never won on the PGA Tour. K-Kaz in the comments nailed it. Yep. I'm going to say Tommy Fleetwood. I just feel like at some point, and it's this back and forth between he's never won on U.S. soil, and yet he's played so well for so many years. At some point, the so-called law of averages, which really doesn't exist, is going to play out, and Tommy Fleetwood's going to win someplace, somewhere. I like him at the API. I know he hasn't played well there the last couple of years, but does have some good results there. Again, I don't like myself for this one, but I'm doing it anyway.
I can't do it. But Mike, it sounds like you can do it. I see you in the comments. What say you on Tommy Fleetwood?
Yeah, I kind of figured that's where Jason was going. That's definitely where I'm going. Look, I've just run an early model on it. I have him 4th in the model. He's going to probably finish 6th. I'm not going to win any money because I'm going to bet him outright, bet him top 5. I might win a matchup to get to even on it, but I do love me some Tommy Fleetwood here. I'll play some Justin Thomas as well. And guys that are kind of playing in this field, Michael Kim and Alex Smalley also projecting pretty high up there.
Before I get to you, Patrick, Mike, I have to ask you something. And I hesitate to ask this because I'm pretty sure you're going to shut me down big time. Because anytime a sports book offers you an additional market that looks super appetizing, it's probably from just a betting standpoint, from an odds standpoint, from a hold standpoint, it's probably not great. With that said, I don't want to bet outrights with Scotty Scheffler involved. Do you ever even consider the winner without anybody market? But let's just talk about Scotty because I think that's the most prevalent name we see.
So I do not see let's caveat that. I don't pre-tournament. I have some interest in that, in tournament under certain circumstances, even final rounds. Like for instance, there's a winner on right now in this tournament that's going on. You can bet a winner without Hindley, Straka, Lowry, or Sungjae. It's still available. That kind of thing. I know that's an old market because some of those guys are not relevant. That is something I'm interested in. But pre-tournament, knowing the kind of tax that you're paying to essentially bet Scotty in this spot, you're definitely, it's the equivalent of buying half a point in the NFL, but paying like 40 cents for doing so. Yeah. So while it does seem comfortable, and there are certainly situations where you could definitely cash tickets on it, I would caution against it, and I would find more creative ways to bet on the guys that you like.
Patrick, what if we bet Scotty Scheffler and then we bet Scotty Scheffler in the without market and we hit both? It's a big scoop. Everybody wins. I'm just saying.
You're sounding like EC.
I am sounding like EC. So make sure you tune into that betting show at 7 on Tuesdays. Patrick, what name comes to mind? Is Tommy Fleetwood on your radar? Or are we going a different direction? I mean, by the way, these are not official outright picks. We're going to wait until the week, but just names that you're looking at that you've got your eye on that may make your card.
He could be like Tommy Fleetwood light almost. Shane Lowry is interesting to me next week. Hopefully, this week he's among the favorites. Next week, hopefully we get a decent number. I tend to like to attack Lowry in stronger fields because I think he can play up to that level of talent. Mm-hmm. And then another one I'm looking at is Patrick Cantlay. You guys might be a sucker for Tommy Fleetwood. I'm a sucker for Patrick Cantlay at this point, and showing a little form there at our Genesis Invitational, having had one good start here too. I just think he's way too good to not have won for this long. So he's another name.
Jason, I've been waiting for signs from Patrick Cantlay, and it looks like we saw one in his last go at it. What do you think of Patrick Cantlay here?
Look, I'm kind of like Patrick. I always like Patrick Cantlay. I'm a little bit of a sucker for him. The numbers start to get a little bit longer than it was probably a year ago, but he just doesn't win enough. He's the American Tommy Fleetwood. I get that he's won some events, but plays well. The ball striking is great. Finishes T7, and we're like, okay, that was pretty good. Got some momentum going to the next one. And then he does the same thing the next time he plays. So I don't know. Do I like him? Yeah, sure. Am I going to bet him? I don't know. I might get suckered into it if the number's good enough, but probably not. No, I don't love it.
Yeah, that's the interesting part is we don't know what the numbers are yet. With Scotty Scheffler being in this tournament, I mean, that does help push the numbers a little bit longer on guys like Patrick Cantlay. My guy is going to be Ludwig. I mean, I hit him 25-1 a few weeks back, and I think he sets up well here. He's played here twice, if memory serves, and has finished T25 or better both times, which isn't super impressive, but I think Ludwig's game is back here. Mike, any thoughts on Ludwig?
Definitely interesting to me. Always going to be interesting. I need to see where the number is ultimately going to be, but he definitely can have some interest. Probably would be more of a matchup type play with me just because of the names he gets matched up against and pricing. Yeah, I'm not going to be looking to bet him outright necessarily, but I do think he plays well. And I do think there might be some value in top 20s and some of those other markets like that.
As of right now, guys, and I reserve the right to change this 9 more times in the next 6 weeks, but I'm going to hold Ludwig for another 6 weeks till we get to, I don't know, second week of April. I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh, okay. I'm not looking at the current number there. Do we know what his Masters number is?
It dropped. I hope he got on it before the Genesis.
I wasn't paying attention.
16, I think.
Yeah.
15, 16.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like a terrible number.
16, yeah.
We'll have to do you want to throw out another Masters name that you like while we're here? Does anybody have an early look at a Masters play, or we're not looking at that market right now?
I'm already on Cantlay for that.
Seriously?
Yeah. Tommy Fleetwood.
Okay. No. Tommy Fleetwood. That's amazing. Yes. All right. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else on the API. I said I like Ludwig. Mike, I like your guy Ben Griffin as a long shot. I mean, not to beat Sky, maybe in like that without market, but he played well here a couple of years ago, and obviously he's playing really, really well. Not just this tournament, but his recent form has been pretty much impeccable. So I think Ben Griffin, if you're looking at long shots, I think he's an interesting play. All right, let's get to that'll just finish up the API for now. It's just a quick little preview, and we'll talk about it more obviously on the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday show. Monday, Tuesday at 7:00. Wednesday is another live show at 10:30, and I believe that's me, Rick, and you, Patrick McDonald, right? You're on the Wednesday morning show.
I'm flying this Wednesday, so I will not be on this one.
Well, darn. All right. Well, it's normally Patrick McDonald. Are you also boots on the ground at the tournament, Patrick?
No, I'm heading out west for something else.
All right. Fair enough. All right. So let's see where we're at in this tournament. Does anybody in the chat, let us know if you have any like live outright questions or any updates you want to give us. Patrick, have you been monitoring this tournament over the last 10 minutes? Where are we at? Any I know Luke Clanton might have just sustained a bogey. Eric Van Rooyen closed his round at 6 under. He's in the clubhouse at 14 under. Luke Clanton 4 under. Taylor Montgomery birdied the first. Minwoo Lee 4 under through 13. Good showing for him. Jacob Bridgman, a guy I mentioned on the DFS show at 7,000, 3 under and tied for 9th through 10 holes. Love to see that. Patrick, anything you're seeing right now?
Not a whole lot. The Gim Reaper's got 12 feet on one. Ricky's got like 5 feet for par on one. And yeah, that's kind of it.
Daniel Berger is officially dead to us. He missed a 4-footer for par on 2.
No.
He made only par, didn't reach the green with his 3rd shot on the par 5 third, and he is at even for the day, 12 under, and we're losing faith very, very quickly.
That's a shame. We thought, I think, Jason, the sentiment was not that this was like a home game for him, but that things were trending in such a direction that Daniel Berger was actually going to be able to close here in a field like this. And after that first day, it just been, again, maybe he's not super well right now, but Jason, it just seemed like, it seems like a guy that can't close.
So I mentioned it on the Friday pod with Rick that I thought it was a little bit of smoke and mirrors from Berger over the first couple of days. Like, okay, he hits one of his in the palm tree to start his round on Thursday morning. He's getting driven back to the tee box. He makes eagle on the second ball. He pars the hole. It's like, okay, well, that's really good. Obviously, keeps some momentum going, but that's not really a great start to the week. He'd rolled in a bunch of 10-plus foot putts throughout the first couple of days. Like, that's good. Like, hey, it's better to make putts than miss putts, but it's also like, you don't want to have to rely on making longer putts, whether it's for birdie or par. And so he was doing that throughout. He was in the water at one point, hitting one out of there. He had plugged bunker. I mean, it's just, there's a lot of stuff going on. For the reason that I like Daniel Berger this week, it is a home game. And for some players, look, you're sleeping in your own bed. But it's not necessarily like, hey, wow, this is great. I'm playing at home. It's take out the trash, feed the kids, get tickets for all the neighbors, and make sure there's parking for your cousins and do all that stuff. For Daniel Berger, playing at home means, hey, I get to show off for family and friends who are out there watching me. I think Daniel Berger is the right kind of player who should be able to succeed in the home game. And he's done it before, 3 top 5s here. But like I said, losing faith very, very quickly.
Ricky Fowler lining up a par putt from what looks to be 5 feet or so. He nails that. I do want to say Clanton a little wayward off the tee over the last couple of holes. He's fading just a bit. And Doug Gim, Patrick, he flushed it to 12 feet, and it would look like a slippery putt, and he nailed it. So Doug Kim is now 15 under, and he is in second place with Michael Kim. Mike McClure, any thoughts?
Yeah, just unfortunate to see Clanton and the Berger, and scoring overall has slowed a bit on the course over the last 30 minutes, which is a little interesting. Wins probably not an issue. They are going to dial up just a touch, but will be interesting to see. Still like some Ben Griffin. Hopefully some of you ended up playing the Doug Gim market for him to go out there and shoot 1 under par. That was the price point at -110.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a pretty good look. Obviously long gone at this point with the opening birdie. Yeah, other than that, I think scoring is kind of slowing down a touch, though, getting quite a few bogeys coming in the last 30 minutes.
It does look like that. I'll tell you what, the chat has been super sharp today. So props to all of you for kind of pointing out some of these bets, and Min Woo with a bogey as well, by the way. We want to make sure that on this show, we kind of cultivate something where it's not just us 4 that are like kind of giving out plays. We want you all, Hef and Joe and Prasan and David Talk. We want Joseph Boza, Jeff Stenberg, not the sarcastic ones, but the real ones, Jeff. We want all you throwing out plays too, which you did today. So like, that's what this chat, and we're going to, I don't know. Well, I'm going to get with Josh and we're going to get with everybody to make sure we make this live show the best it can be. So if you have suggestions for this show, send them our way, tweet at us, whatever the case may be. Patrick, any final thoughts on what we're watching right now at the Cognizant Classic?
Not really. Got money on Michael Kim 5-1, but rooting interest, can't go wrong with the Rust Bus.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, put in the chat who you're sweating. Like what's this live sweat going to look like for you in the chat over the next 4 hours or so? It's for me because Berger looks like he's probably gone. I put a small play on Fowler, but my big play is Sepp Straka, and that's going to be somewhat of a long shot. But Jason Sobel, final thoughts and who you're rooting for down the stretch here?
Yeah, the Berger tickets don't look great right now. My only hedge is Ben Griffin, so let's see if we can get Ben Griffin in the house with that first career victory. But look, I will say that keep your options open. I hate the bear trap terminology. I mean, we don't need a nickname for every single 3-hole stretch that's good on the PGA Tour. That said, 15, 16, 17 is going to do some damage to some guys, so don't be afraid. We get late in the round and some guys 2 back through 14 holes, but you like the ball strike and you think he's going to hold up. It can certainly happen on this golf course. There's a lot of volatility out there.
Yeah, Jeff Stenberg says, I bought a Gim plus 1,200 ticket. Now we go. Ethan Laureate got Henley and Knapp pre-tournament outrights. That's a fun sweat. Dan Casey, he is sweating Knapp at 90-1. Mike, who are you sweating down the stretch here?
Mostly just Ben Griffin, but yeah, I don't think any, Clanton's obviously not going to get it done. Fortunately, all my big action this week was in a top 40, so we're good to go, but would like to see Min Woo and Clanton both finish strong for DFS.
All right. I know that even if Straka doesn't close in terms of winning, I need him to do well because my biggest DFS lineup is a 6-for-6, and unfortunately it has your boy, Patrick, Denny McCarthy, who just kind of didn't show up fully this tournament. But rest of the guys are on the course, and that includes Straka and Berger. Patrick, your thoughts on Denny? He was so underwhelming.
Yeah, I don't think the good scoring conditions on Thursday helped a guy like Denny McCarthy.
Yeah.
He needs the winning score to be closer to 10 under than 20 under, and just didn't really have it this week, unfortunately.
Well, we'll get a tougher test at the API, but hopefully some of our DFS advice on Monday, which you'll hear tomorrow for the API at 7:00. Hopefully that went well for everybody because I think it's been a really good DFS week for those who watched the early wedge. Again, that show tomorrow at 7:00 on this channel. Ladies and gentlemen, I think that's going to do it. Let's sweat this out. Let's send some tweets out if any of these hit. If you got some live sweats going, let us know on social media. We want to be a part of it, and we thank you for being a part of this. We'll see you tomorrow at 7 o'clock on the Early Wedge, and, of course, the Early Edge every Monday through Friday at 10 o'clock in the morning. We'll see you then as well. All right, good luck down the stretch at the Cognizant Classic. We'll see you tomorrow for the API.